I am a marketing agency owner.
What's a media sales job?
If you don't have a network, you'd better turn this around or think about another industry.
Do you read every resume?
Yeah, I would have absolutely fired that client. Actually, write it down. When you're feeling like you're overwhelmed with all the things, this happens to me a lot. When I started going to therapy, it started freeing up my husband's bandwidth because I'm not just
chill.
Well, you probably take things a lot less personally too.
Welcome back to Be Frank Podcast. We invite guests to be as frank as possible. My name is Yosuke Shingu. Today I'm with Alyssa Murphy. She is a founder of Siren Media, digital marketing expert, network queen, and cat lover. That 4 years ago, she was let go from 9-to-5 job, but she's crushing it. I hope you can learn something from this episode 5 to get inspired, see your endless possibility for your life. Thanks for coming to Be Frank Podcast, Alyssa. How are you today?
Yosuke, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming back.
Man, I'm all about it. Another session with you to talk about life.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you. Well, just to be frank, we had this podcast episode last week. Mm-hmm. We had a little bit technical issue on the camera. Shit happens.
It happens.
Yes. So let's get into it. So can you introduce yourself to the listener?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So my name is Alyssa Weathers Murphy. I am a marketing agency owner based here in Oklahoma City, and I'm a sales professional who decided to start my own thing after my last, as Yosuke alluded to, my last opportunity did not pan out, and I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and I had to figure it out quickly. So my background is in sales and retail and then professional sales, got my college degree in marketing, and now I feel like I'm one of those very rare millennials that can say I actually use all parts of my degree and work experience today.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Where did you go to? You graduated school?
UCO.
Oh,
Bronchos.
Cool.
Yep.
So you were talking about, we're just talking about the sales job, right? Mm-hmm. So what kind of sales job you were doing?
Yeah, I actually started out in, my working career in retail. So my family owns a small business in Edmond. It's a TV store that's there to this day. It's been there for about 62 years. It's called Weathers TV and Appliance. And my mom and dad worked the shop. My dad was, the salesman. He would sell people TVs, refrigerators, appliances, whatever. And my mom ran the back office. So she answered the phones. She did all the ticketing and, QuickBooks type stuff, all the accounting and bookkeeping. And I was always around really good customer service minded people and watched my dad sell to customers and kind of understood, there was this flow that he had, and I absorbed that. And the way that I'm wired, it kind of meshed with my personality because I'm outgoing, I'm friendly, I like people. So it was natural that when I started working as a teenager, I got a job just a couple of stores down from the family business because I really didn't get along with my dad. But I went to work for a lady a couple of stores down at the gift shop and just really found that I had a knack for suggesting products to people. The store owner, this was years and years ago, the store owner mentioned, here's how many items that we sell every day. And so I would kind of make it a point to see if I could sell more items that day. And it was fun. It was really fun for me. So as I started getting into other jobs after high school, my first job out of high school was at Beauty Brands. That's a brand that no longer exists. It just went under, I think, 2 years ago. #RIP Beauty Brands, but they lost to brands like Ulta and Sephora, just taking over the market. But back in probably 2007, I was stocking shampoo, I was running the register, and I started getting promoted up every rank there was. So
right.
I had multiple jobs and found that I was actually really good at business. I had really low self-esteem as a kid, but I found that I was pretty good at business, and I was smart enough to keep up with things, and I was good at sales, learned management, and then I worked for, I got actually secret shopped one day by one of the women from the Clinique counter at the nearby Dillard's, and she recruited me to come and interview at Dillard's at the Quail Springs Mall in Oklahoma City, if you're familiar with Oklahoma City. And I went to work for Dillard's after that point and worked for several different prestige brands. But the sales thing was consistent across the board. Yes,
Gotcha.
You're going to learn about a product. You're going to be able to play in makeup, whatever you're selling, you're going to learn about your product. But every company has a way that they approach sales. You know, they've all got metrics. They give you a goal, and if you don't get the goal, you get in trouble.
Right.
If you crush the goal, you get a gold star.
Yeah.
So that set me up, I think, for corporate sales once I got to that point.
Gotcha. So then, after dealers from the retail, did you graduated and then you got the media job? Or?
Yep, I sure did. So I went into, graduated UCO, which UCO has a fabulous sales program. So they have you can get a minor or a major in professional sales and negotiation.
Yeah.
I would encourage everybody to take that class.
I took that class.
It's good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's super good. It just prepares you for so much in business and so much in life. Like every interaction that we have is a sale.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Alyssa, you want to be on my podcast? Well, I'm sold because I like to be on anything where my face and voice are doing this. So sold, great. But
Right.
everything we do is a negotiation,
Right.
especially when we're in business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went into media after I graduated high school. I worked for a very small agency for a short time. And that's how my career started in marketing. And it's so funny because I was at that agency for about 4 or 5 months. And then the last very small agency I worked for, I was only there for about 3 months. Very similarly structured, very similar issues that I had at both places. But you know what? It's okay. It just wasn't a good fit. But my first job out of college did send me onto the trail of trying to find a good sales job or a marketing job. And I had a friend from cosmetics whose husband worked for a TV commercial, this Cox Communications. So they sold commercials for the cable systems
Right.
and satellite systems in Oklahoma. So I was really fortunate to know that couple, shout out to Greg Sorrells, and get into media. So I did that for about 4 years.
So I'm in the same industry, so I understand like how the media sales works, but I never worked in the corporate media sale neither. I'm like curious, what's the media sales job like entail?
Man, I feel like I'm probably not even the best person to speak on it. I can tell you my experience, but there are people who have been in that world who are just absolute veterans. You know,
Right.
people who I still talk to this day who have done that their entire career.
Yeah.
I found it to be crazy, like really, really exciting. I loved learning about the product. I loved learning about how it could help people. I think for me, the biggest challenge I had was just the kind of media that I wanted to be involved with. I was really more into social media. I was in traditional media for about 4 years, increased my goal, hit my goals, had a really tough year, and found that when you're having like a tough year or a tough go at it, like it can get really stressful. And that wasn't a great environment for me, so I moved on. But I am very grateful that I had the time that I had in media, for sure,
Yeah.
100%.
So do you want to go in detail about that stuff like that?
Totally can.
Yeah. So like, honestly, what I hear too, like, the media sales rep and all that kind of stuff on the marketing industry, like, when you do good, like, you get like a gift from station. Like sometimes whenever we buy big media purchases, they give you like tickets to a concert.
Look it up. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they also like
I would do that for my clients. Hey, I got tickets to the Thunder game.
like OU games and all that kind of stuff. But like, it's kind of like we're talking about, Gen Z will not be able to probably do this kind of job.
It's a different environment for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do have feelings. I mean, even me, however many years ago that was okay. So I started in 2014 in media. Is that almost 8 years ago?
Yeah.
God dang it. Oh, okay. Eye cream people. So I, even as a millennial and being in the industry, and I was, the youngest person in the office at the time, I found certain practices to be very old school. Certain things that were done from a management perspective that I didn't like.
Yeah.
But it's not because anybody was mean or just a bad person. It's just kind of the status quo.
Right.
So it's like the stick versus the carrot approach. You'll have some managers who are really the carrot people. You're like, hey, you're doing a great job. Like, you can do it. You totally got this. Okay, I'm working. But then you have other people who are the stick approach to management and sales management.
Yeah.
And that just that was not my speed. I mean, I had some really wonderful managers at that company and other companies, and I struggled with the stick manager type, in that environment. And I think that anybody needs to decide what they want their 9 to 5 to be like. What do you want out of your 9 to 5? I found myself, not just even at that job, and I can count back to other scenarios where if I knew that I was having a poor sales performance month, like I just know I'm going to hear about it. And I'm a rock star salesperson. Like I don't take failure lightly. I don't take missing a goal lightly. That's not how I'm wired. But if I have to face the reality that I'm having a tough month or a tough quarter, maybe I've had a tough first half of the year, that really does start to mess with me. So managers that have been in the industry for longer will have that more stick approach. Like you'd better turn this around or think about another industry. But I feel like that's just sales in general. When you get into really big contracts and companies that may or may not train their managers how to motivate people, how to manage people. Managing people is very hard.
Yeah.
You and I know that.
Yeah.
You and I are business owners now.
For sure.
So, I mean, I just think that now, 8 years after the fact, if that same mentality is still happening, if that same, status quo, you've had people who have been in leadership positions for decades now treating people the same way. Hopefully Gen Z does dismantle it. I think millennials kind of took a swing after it, but you know what? Millennials are aging up. We're not the new kids on the block now.
Right.
So I certainly hope that is the end to some of the way that things have been happening.
Yeah, and then also a lot of research have shown that people doesn't leave the job because of what they're doing. Yeah. Because I think number one reason they leave the job is that they don't like their boss. Mm-hmm. They don't like the management. There's
that quote. Yeah, people don't leave bad jobs. They leave bad managers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's no. I think it's just it's interesting to me because of that. It's kind of like how. A lot of fantasized old movies and old media. Mm-hmm. It's like ABC, right? Always be closing. And then a lot of different technique we learn from UCO and all that kind of stuff. It is kind of always be closing, but in a different way.
Yes.
Like you mentioned about last time you liked the book Spin book.
Yeah.
The spin selling.
Spin selling.
Yeah, I like that book. And then they talked about figuring out how problem you're talking about that your clients or potential customers problem, and then figure out their situations and all that kind of stuff, the implication, and then what's that last one? Need.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I'm
just gonna agree with you because I can't remember.
I think I remember. I should remember that. I think I'm used that technique all the time, even to the day.
Yep.
And then when I met you, I think you were at the previous agency or the two previous agencies.
It was a video production firm. Yeah. Long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that day that, it was kind of huge office space, and then you came out, and then man, she knows everybody. That's what JC was telling me, and then you know everybody. You're art club president.
AMA, OKC.
AMA, OKC.
Yes,
I said it again.
Very similar organizations.
Yeah, and then I thought about highly of you. You spoke very well, and then you came to us hey, let's do something together mentality. It's not hey, what can you do for me kind of mentality.
Yep.
So ever since then, I had so much respect for you.
Well, thanks.
And then so I think that what I wanted to ask is that can you kind of walk me through the fact of that when you got let go and then starting a business. We talked about this before, but if you can walk me through that stuff again.
Totally. And there's a really powerful lesson in this whole story, and the lesson is always have alternatives. And we talk about that in the negotiation process. If you don't have alternatives, then you're out of luck, and you can't beggars can't be choosers. Yeah. That's what happened to me. So for the listeners, the video production firm I worked for was pretty short, just about a year, and I went back into the small business digital marketing firm life. So I took a position with a very small agency. I would call it more of a marketing shop. It was very small, but they just did things like social media management and Google Ads, that sort of thing. They had their very particular niche. And this ownership, so it was a partnership that owned it. They really liked me because of kind of the same reason I think that you thought highly of me at first when we met. I do have a network. I know people in Oklahoma City. I've spent all this time developing a very solid network and making sure that I know who's what where now.
Right.
I don't feel like I've done as much networking in the last 4 years as a business owner, but one thing I did do very well as I got out of college was network. Went to all the things, met all the people, and really tried to learn as much as I could about my industry. So that's something I recommend everybody do. But when I took this position at this small firm, they learned things about me, like my style, and then I don't know that they were quite prepared to bring on another salesperson. And I've seen this happen time and time again. A small business wants to build their book of business, and the instinct is, oh, if I just bring on a salesperson, it'll just add more sales. Well, yeah, but that's going to be an investment in a person. That's going to take time, especially when we're talking about marketing, marketing services. Yosuke knows that's a long sale.
Yeah.
From the time you meet somebody who could be your customer to the time they become a customer, that's a relationship sale.
Yeah.
It's not easy. So I think that they were just really unprepared for that, or had a different expectation, and I had a lot of questions they just couldn't answer. So 3 months in, I got a phone call, and the guy said, well, sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. It's not a good fit.
Because you couldn't sell?
No, I sold a few things while I was there. It just wasn't a good fit.
Okay.
I think that they wanted more from me in that time.
Gotcha.
I had sold a couple of things, but not to their expectation.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. He didn't get into it, but I remember just having that sinking, like, you think about being fired. I've never been fired. I've always been, I alluded to earlier, I've always worked up. I've always been worked up. I've always been promoted. I've always been a rock star. So to have been fired and to sit in the belly of shame, you're sitting in your worst nightmare as a salesperson, like, I got let go. What the hell? And what do I do next? But I took a day to mope around. I remember it very vividly. I walked around the Plaza District, back to kind of my roots where I started doing social media marketing for my sister's company years ago, and started buying some little motivational stickers, just like little stickers to pep me up. And I remember having the thought to myself, I don't know that I want to do this again, at least not now. I had been thinking about what it would take to start an agency. I had no interest in it.
Right.
I told the last company I worked for I have zero interest in starting my own firm, and that was the God's honest truth. I didn't want to start my own company.
Right.
But I had just spent 3 months telling my entire network that I was doing social media marketing, and we could do websites and all this stuff. It so happened that I also had a bunch of girlfriends who worked for another big digital firm. It's called Big Wing, and they folded a few years ago. They got purchased and shut things down. So I had friends from Big Wing who were let go.
Yeah.
Just straight up, like, one night they had a job, the next morning they don't have a job. A couple of them I looped in and asked them if they'd like to do some contract work. So one started helping me with Google Ads, one started helping me with Facebook ads, and or told me that they would be interested in that kind of work. And then I had another friend, or a woman who I was introduced to, whose company was going through a very, very, very dark time. She was getting let go, or about to get let go, in the process of that. So she was considering starting her own firm. And we were connected through my network, and all of a sudden I have production.
Yeah.
I have these ladies in my network who are in a very similar situation as me,
Right.
and it's scary. And my background was in selling big, scary contracts,
Right.
Very expensive contracts,
Yeah.
advertising. And I had all these people who I just told,
Yeah.
hey, I can help you with this. So that to say, I did not take clients from this other company. They let me go. I did not take any of their existing customers. That would not be a cool thing to do. I don't recommend anybody do that. But I did have a couple of, business owners that I met out and about while I was networking for that company. I called them and said, hey, I'm no longer at that company anymore. I'm doing my own thing. It's called Siren Media. Would you like to get together for coffee? And so I got a couple of contracts that way. My family business hired me. Thanks, Dad. They were one of my first customers. And
Nice.
that was 4 years ago this month. So we'll celebrate 4 years. And now we're at,
Congratulations.
thank you. We're at like 22 small businesses on retainer that rely on us for social media marketing. We built over 50 websites. We've done dozens of brands. And I can't believe when you start looking back at like all the work
Right.
that you've done, you're like, whoa, that's a lot of work.
It's good. It's fascinating, and then like it's just like I don't know. Maybe I should count how many websites we built for the clients.
Totally should, because I know that you guys have more staff than we do. I've always been more, I don't know, like me and a couple of people. I feel like you and John have done a really great job of scaling to like a whole team.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's crazy when you start to look back and think of all the things that you've done.
Yeah, and
It's a
then
good
how many
point.
like videos we made and all that kind of stuff. Like I see that like how many like roofers say how many nails we put it on the shingles or something like
Yeah.
that. And then how many like terabyte of the footage we went through, I don't know.
It's crazy. And even the video production you guys have been doing, I mean, it's just, you guys are a totally different ball of wax from, I think, what we do. But I think that's what makes it so cool to see other agencies operate. And also, shout out to you guys just for being there for me anytime I've got, just a
No
burning
worries.
question.
Yeah.
I feel like you and John both have always been just a welcoming face anytime I have a problem.
Well, thank you for
Or
saying that.
question.
Also, like you helped us, and then like when I had a hard time about finding a web designer, having a web
Yeah.
designer is hard.
It is.
And then
It
like
is.
to even like we had a lot of contractor, but I don't know what's going on with the web designers, but
Yeah.
like they sometimes don't show up.
Oh.
Well, they don't call back, and then like I hear so many stories about that like clients pay for like a one-off like a website designer,
Mm-hmm.
and then they never finish. They pay for it, so like that's kind of one of like
Shady.
my like a selling point too
Yeah.
to the selling stuff. Like why you guys like charge this much and all that kind of stuff. Like it's not the one of things. It's like it's supposed to be common sense. When people pay, you deliver. It's a common sense to me, but what I learned as website, sometimes a lot of people don't finish and they just ghost.
And customers get burned.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, our industry is just filled with thieves.
It's crazy how
Thieves and snakes.
yeah. So I mean like marketing stuff and like but you guys focus on small businesses, right? So like what is the typical process of the small business marketing?
That's a good question. I think we've got it boiled down to some basic principles, but then there's like 75 sub-steps
Yeah.
within all those. But the first thing that we do, and I know I'm going to be preaching to the choir to Yosuke, but for your listeners, it's, we start with the brand. What are the visuals that you are using to communicate your brand and tell people that this is your business? How good is it? Do you only have one logo that has like 4 pixels? Like, is it compressed? Is it bad? Is it old? Does it need to be updated? And then when I look at the client's website and see what they've been doing, if they already have things out there, how good are the words that you're using? It's as plain as that.
Right.
How good is your content?
Yeah.
Do I understand, and how can I understand what you do very simply? If I hit your website, do I have to scroll forever? Does your website even work? What does your about page on your website say? Is it a one-line section of your website? That drives me nuts. But people in this day and age really expect some sort of visual
Yeah.
that communicates trust
Yeah.
for whatever they're looking for. And they need the words. A lot of people need the words to understand what you do, how you do it, and why they should choose you. That's branding. Branding's more than just the logo. And again, I know that that's preaching to the choir with Yosuke, but branding is more than just your logo, people. And where we're working with our clients, that's the first thing that we look at. The second part of that, we look at it and then we create the brand for them, just like I know your agency does too. The second part is web, what's happening online. If I Google your business, can I find you? Is your pin in Timbuktu when I look you up on maps? Like, how is it organized? Is it cleaned up? Does it need help? Then web design is a big portion of that.
Yeah, website is kind of like you're a 24/7 salesperson.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I have met, and I don't know if you've had this too, but I feel like in the medical world, and you get into the world of, these businesses that make a ton of profit, but they won't appreciate a website until they understand the implications. I've had clients that are like building a multi-million-dollar facility, but they balk at a $10,000 website or whatever it was. And it's like, man, how many people do you think are going to hit your website before they come to your brick and mortar?
Yeah.
It's going to be way more people on your website than it will be in your brick and mortar. You should probably have it cleaned up.
Yeah, it's hard to explain that to client too, but it's kind of interesting to me. Some clients know they need it exactly, but some clients need to have education.
Yep.
And then I think it's
So
the same
true.
thing about like building a team or building a community, building a network. It's about people you surround yourself with, the people who are willing to listen, willing to learn. I think that's like the most important thing. And then like even like I used to we used to take anybody.
Yep. You
anytime.
have to when you get started.
Yes.
You got to take whatever you can take to get the sale. Get
Now,
money.
now like I do like take a client interview and then like I just listen to them, how they interact, and then like if they're like, I know if they're gonna be like a difficult client, even they say like I can pay this much, I'm like my mental health, also my team's mental health, and then they're not gonna like this, so they're probably not gonna pay us like for a long time. Then like it's just not worth it.
There's so many red flags when you start working in any industry that you can start picking up on early on in those conversations.
Yeah,
I agree.
for sure.
I agree.
And then what are those question? Oh, like I was curious, like you building like your team, right? What is your like a not typical question you ask during the interview?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, so I've been in the hiring process, and being a salesperson, I've given that area of my career a lot of attention. I've given that side of my brain a lot of attention, and what I've learned this past summer is that my attention as a business owner also needs to be on the management, like the people side of the business. Because if you let me, I will be out there like booking deals all day long, trying to get money into the business. But there comes a time in your business ownership journey, your entrepreneurship journey, where you really need to pay attention to what's happening inside your house. I had some turnover, which happens. People find really amazing opportunities that they need to go pursue. People are going to find that they don't love the work that they're doing. It could be even, the way that you are as a business owner didn't jive, or you had blind spots throughout that whole process. So did some exit interview work on that, and getting feedback is really key. So when it comes to asking people questions in interviews, what I did differently this last time was base it around the position that I'm hiring for. So most recently I hired for a social media strategist position. So in the agency world, that person is going to be over all of our social media accounts. Like they're going to be creating content. They have to wear a lot of different hats. You have to be creative. You have to be customer service oriented. You have to be, good with time management and time blocking. You have to be thorough. Like there are a lot of kind of competing things there.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I even talked to my HR consultant, and he's like, this is like 5 different job descriptions, honestly. And I'm like, well, that's social media for you, because social media is a lot of different things. I mean, I've done that job. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So when we were hiring for this position, I worked with my sales and leadership coach. So I'm a member of Sandler Training here in Oklahoma. And they have a model called DISC that they use. We talked about that last time briefly. But it's just a framework to figure out the way that people are wired. So DISC, those stand for different things. Me, for instance, I'm a D over I. So I'm dominant and influencer. So I can dominate a conversation. I'm really people focused. I'm a ball of energy when I'm out in a networking environment. That makes sense, right? But other people are not wired that way. So if I don't have the awareness about how I might come off to people in a networking event or in a first meeting with somebody, I can ruin an opportunity before the meeting even starts. So I've had to be I've been learning a lot about that over the last couple of years, but we used DISC assessments and then an HR assessment for that position to pre-screen all candidates. So I only ended up interviewing a handful of people out of the 49 applicants that I got.
Do you tell them, say, hey, take this test and send it to us?
The ones that made it to the top of the list would go through that assessment.
Do you read every resume you send it to?
Yes.
Do you read it?
I do.
Wow.
I do. Have I followed up on everybody? I'm working on it. Yes. But, for this is the first time that I've ever hired.
Right.
I've always had, young ladies in college reach out to me looking for a first job or an internship or some sort of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I've been so lucky.
Yeah.
I'm like over the moon with how lucky I've been as a business owner to have such young, cool, talented people on my team. But it was time for their next thing.
Yeah.
I'm still a small business. I'm still a small agency. I'm not going to be the destination for everybody, but that was a big change in my business too, was trying to make it to where this new person can grow.
Right.
So it required some restructuring.
So the final, whenever you try to choose maybe top 3 candidate, what kind of question do you ask?
So it's interesting. I worked with my Sandler coach on this. Shout out David Curran.
Yeah.
We focused on questions that kind of gauged their ability to manage certain stressful situations.
Interesting.
Like, okay, tell me about a time.
Well, give me an interview.
Yeah. So, Yosuke,
Yes.
tell me about a time something really stressful happened with a client. How did you handle it?
So I can think of a situation. I was working with a client, and then client was very, very upset. The night before, I got a long email. I got that text from the person say, hey, you're about to get this email. I'm like,
Oh, they prefaced it with, you're about to get this email.
then I got the email. That was a long email. Say we didn't ask for this. You guys are so late. Blah blah blah. It's just long. It's just probably longer than this podcast. I'm just kidding. It was
Wow.
a pretty long, right?
Right.
And then the one thing I'll do is, first of all, whenever that happens, I just take a big breather. I'm just big into the breathing, so I just I breathe to the balls.
I just got
That's
my
what I
ass
say.
handed to me. I've been there. I've been there, bro. Yeah.
And then I will breathe, and then I will start looking for evidence. And then start looking for the contract, what I wrote, and start looking for
Compare
what
it to
happened.
what was said.
And then I asked every single person who is in charge of this project. I talked to every single person, what happened, why is this not done, all that kind of stuff. And then I talked to my partner, say, hey, this is what's happening. I'm just letting you know.
Right.
And then we have a couple meetings. Say, I just hold a meeting, emergency meeting. Say, this is what happened. All right. So then I got a lot of my team members of my team, they are defensive because I know I got asked my chewed out. So they're scared of their ass chewed out.
Right.
But I'm hey, this is not blaming situation.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah. So tell me what happened, and then they eventually tell me what exactly happened. And then I just realized it just calmed down, and I just write it down. Write it down one by one of what they said, and I have an answer.
Right.
What they say, I have an answer. What they say, I have an answer.
Sure.
And then say, hey, I know you're not happy, but we will just give you this because you're not happy.
Right.
And then, but also I tell them, say, we're not happy because you did this to me. You did this to us. And then this is kind of disrespectful because I don't take disrespectful from anybody.
Right.
From the client. I think everything is from the build on the respect. So I tell them, and then they didn't email me back for a week. Then I'm just chill. And then they came back, say, say they hold a meeting and say like, did you get that email? And they're like, yes, we're good. So that was the end of it. I mean, that's kind of how I handle the weird situation. I don't know. That's a good answer or not.
So if you were a candidate interviewing for a social media position, it's not to say I wouldn't hire you, but I would definitely coach you a little bit.
I can't do your job.
Yeah. I would definitely have some coaching around now. But I think that what you did really well in that situation is figure out just objectively what happened. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing I think that we forget about in business, there's a Sandler-ism, I've got a few of them, but people want to be heard. People want to be heard and understood, and all of the world's frustrations are the result of unmet expectations. Like those are a couple of Sandler-isms that I think that I have to keep in mind here. So when somebody does send me one of those, ass-reaming emails, I have to remember, okay, they're in an emotional state because I'm handling their baby. Yeah. Their baby is their business. Their baby is their marketing.
Right.
And I hurt the baby, or they perceive that I hurt the baby. I don't actually hurt babies, but they have perceived that I have hurt something or could hurt something that's very important to them. Mm-hmm. So they're already in a heightened emotional state.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So in that situation, what I would add to that is ask for more. Is there anything else?
Yeah.
Anything else? Let them get it all out. And then after I get an email like that, I don't respond initially. I will say, I want you to know I've read this, and I'm currently taking action with my team. Give me 24 hours and I'll be back in touch with next steps,
I did that,
right? Yeah, so we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But allowing people or letting them feel that they have been heard.
Yeah.
Just not saying anything. If it were a phone call, definitely too. Just letting them get it all out. Because if you start to bring the objective facts as somebody is in an emotionally heightened state, they don't take that as, oh, Yosuke is just being objective and telling me what's happening. You're arguing.
Right.
Now we're arguing.
Yeah.
I don't want to argue.
Right.
We're all busy.
Yeah.
But in email, your situation was different because you were able to come back and say, here's objectively what happened.
Yeah.
I understand that you're not feeling heard. In the social media world, and for somebody on my team, I would be looking for somebody who had a very customer service oriented approach, but boundaries are good too. And I think that we as a team have learned that we have been way too nice and way too, maybe loose on how we let clients walk on us sometimes. Like we do to this day still have clients who will reach out and, a day before they need something, they're hollering at us. Well, that doesn't really breed a good culture for our team because now we have to stop everything that we're doing to do this 1 or 5 things for you.
Yeah.
So this has definitely been a good learning period for me as a business owner and a leader and a manager to get ahead of some of that stuff and make sure that my team has boundaries and what they need to push back and say, hey, yeah, we can do that for you. It will be 5 days before we can have it and it'll cost X.
Yeah.
That's a really big thing we've been working on.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have those boundaries, then you give people permission and signal to them that they can do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I also like that what you just said about taking time and that you don't want to have an argument. And then like that's something I learned like maybe like a couple years ago or like multiple years ago. So I was sitting in the client meeting. Yeah. And then he was like home builder or whatever. He gets a phone call. I can even hear like customers yelling at him. Whoa. And then I'm like,
red flag. That's not a very good home builder.
I'm like,
maybe.
well, then what's going on? And then he says, hey, please calm down. And then if you don't calm down, I'll hang up. And he hangs up. I was like, damn, that's...
I feel like dudes do things in business that I gotta start doing. I gotta start doing that. I can do it.
He gets phone call again. And then like the same, I can hear it.
It didn't work the first time?
No, then like they're yelling. And then he says the same thing again, right? Say, if you calm down, we can talk. But you're not calm down, I'll hang up. He hangs up.
It's the same guy that called him?
Yeah, obviously that was like after like three seconds later, he get a phone call. And then he just looked at me. He's like, this is okay. And then he gets another phone call. And then he answers. And I can hear that conversation because he calmed down. So then like he said, okay, you calm down now. So what's wrong? And then he started talking. Okay, we'll handle it. All that kind of stuff. And then he just go about business. And then he tell me that story. Said you never talk to people who are emotional at that point.
Yeah.
Just hang up if you need to.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, that's the
That's a
coolest
really
thing.
good boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that before.
Yeah, like, you're not going to talk to me that way, so call me back when you're calm.
Yeah. And then I have that situation even like in the like a real meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The client was like start yelling at me. I'm like, I just did this. Like, I'll stop you right there. If you're going to talk to me that way, and then you can get out. And then he's
Damn, I got to start doing things that dudes do. I don't think I've ever had anybody yell at me in person like that.
Yeah,
but you never know. You
Yeah,
never
never
know
know.
if somebody's just going to flip their lid and what it's going to be about.
Yeah, and then I think it's just a business sense, and there's no sense of yelling. There's no sense of like
There
getting
really
emotional.
isn't. Yeah.
So like, you just have to do that, and then especially, you're like your clients doing something to my people, and then I'll be
Big
like,
time.
you can't do that to my team or me.
No, absolutely not. I have a very short fuse about that. I mean, I'd say that I had an incident with an employee that had an uncomfortable experience with a client. I didn't know about it. I think that particular employee wanted to, just not rock the boat. And it broke my heart when I found out what was said to this person and how it made them feel. I would have fired that client that day had I known. I would have. And I say I would have. I truly feel that in my gut I would have. But, as business leaders, I feel like that's such a weird thing that we navigate too. It's like, do we want to do this and, risk losing money and not being able to pay bills? Or do we there's like a really, really profound and sometimes really difficult code of ethics you have to navigate.
Yeah.
I mean, when I heard what was said, yeah, I would have absolutely fired that client, or had a very stern talking with that client.
Yeah.
I understand that the client thought that they were making a joke, but I also understand that it was very inappropriate. I mean, we were talking earlier about growing up in such an old school industry, in the sales industry, what was said to my employee at the time, I wouldn't have batted an eye. I wouldn't have even thought twice about what was said. But that's me. And I was, going through a different set of circumstances and was hardened a certain way. And I say hardened. It's not to say that person, my employee, was just, a weak or soft person. Not at all. This is just not that person's lived experience to accept emotional abuse to get to a sales quota.
Right.
Or inappropriate jokes or shoulder kisses.
Right.
We were talking about that. I had a client kiss me on the shoulder and I let it happen.
Yeah.
Or I didn't it's not that I let it happen. It happened and I didn't say anything about it because I needed that client to buy from me. You just put up with certain crap. And I have to think about that now. What kind of precedent does that set for me being somebody who is a salesperson who will put up with certain things and not shut it down? And how does that affect my team?
Yeah.
And I think anymore, that's the thing that'll get me to flip my lid real quick.
Yeah.
In a business environment. It's not to say I'm going to be bitchy or whatever. We're just not going to do business.
Yeah, for sure.
Plain and simple.
I mean, also that, another aspect of it is sometimes it's simple as that they don't know any better.
Yeah,
And
maybe they have had other vendors who let them do that.
Yeah, so I think that having boundary, I mean, that client, if you yell at me, he is still my client of mine till today.
Yeah.
And then also that I think that employee of mine respect me more because of what I did that action, and I didn't care about
you stood up for
getting
them.
fired or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I didn't care at that point, Maybe that's
That's
not
such
a good.
That's such a tough thing because you've got, as a business owner, I feel like it can get really lonely sometimes, and maybe other business owners understand it best, but you are constantly balancing the act of your employees and making their experience a good experience. They're your internal clients.
Yeah.
Your clients, making sure that their experience is good. And then, this world of people who don't know you yet, making sure that they're having a good experience with you. And if anything ever teeters, you're the person that looks bad.
Right.
It's tough.
I mean, like, it's kind of like if good things happen, it's a team's effort.
That's right.
If bad things happen, it's my
you.
fault. I mean, that's how it is.
Yosuke screwed it up.
Yeah.
No, I totally feel that in my heart.
Yeah.
But it is true, though, at the end of the business day, if something did happen and I'm the business leader, and even if one of my team members did make a mistake on something, the buck stops with me.
Yeah.
So it really is like, if we did a great job, we did a great job. If something went wrong, I'm responsible, which makes it feel even more isolating.
Right. Did you thought of before you started business that you're gonna be like your own boss, right? And then you're gonna have freedom.
Yep.
You're gonna be.
I sure did.
You know, but like in reality
sure
is
did.
like a little bit different, right?
Yeah, and I also thought that, well, if I could just be really nice and friends with all my employees, then that'll make me a good manager.
Yeah.
And that's only one very small aspect of being a good manager. I've learned this. It's you know,
you will define yourself as like friends with your team.
I think so. I mean, right now, I've got a project manager who has been with me throughout this transition we've been in as a team, and just brought on another team member. And you just start working as a team, and you're spending 8 hours a day together sometimes. Now we're flex remote, so some days we'll be working remotely, but you really do start to become friends with people. And I think the way that I'm wired, again, going to that D and I, if you go and research DISC, like I love working with people. I care about people. I want them to have a great experience all the way around. And especially with people on my team, if they don't have a great experience, it sends me into a really deep introspective, what did I do wrong? And there are some things that I think I definitely could have done better. And as a business owner, when you start to see turnover for any reason, even if someone said, hey, it was just a really great opportunity, you still wonder what you could have done to keep them. And that does create environment for negative self-talk, and we have to be careful about that. But in the grand scheme of things, I think if you're always trying to examine, every situation that happens, even if you feel like you screwed it up big time, if you can take that information and grow from it, you're 10 steps ahead of other people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because some people will just wallow in the same mistakes that they've been doing.
Yeah.
I've left managers like that, and I don't want to be a manager like that. I don't think I'm a manager like that, but I don't know. You can see my exit interviews. I don't know, but yeah.
But whenever you have those like hard, tough thoughts in your head, who do you talk to? Oh,
man. Now I'm going to sound like, okay. So when I'm talking in my head, I do feel like I do talk to myself, like, okay, what in the heck was that? Or, when you're having those moments of just being like, gosh, what were you doing? Like, what were you thinking? It's definitely at me. I at me all the time.
Yeah.
You're like, of course that was done that way. You didn't do X, Y, Z. Or of course that didn't happen the way you wanted it to, because you didn't tell them X, Y, Z thing. It's definitely a me at me scenario. And I have to be, shout out to my therapist for helping me with, understanding when that's happening, and kind of mentally saying, like, I'm not going to trash talk myself right now, because I'm going through a lot. This last few months has been super challenging as a business owner, but it's also been a really good, like, eye-opening experience, and a lot of positive things came from it. But you definitely have to be able to audibly say in your brain and let it echo, like,
right.
I'm not gonna talk bad on myself right now. I'm going through a lot. I'm gonna be kind to myself.
Yeah.
What can I do to fix this? Whatever it is in life.
Right. I mean, I was just curious, like, you talk to your husband about this and kind of stuff.
Oh God, he's so sick of hearing it. All my problems. Shout out to my therapist. So my husband doesn't have to hear all my problems. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious because, I talked to my girlfriend about some stuff, and then, like, how do I, because I don't want to be a negative person in front of her and all that kind of stuff. And then also, like, positivity. And then I have my business partner JC.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I talk to my employees.
Sure.
Sometimes
Sure.
I call to like
So your question wasn't like, hey, Alyssa, who do you talk to in your head? That's how I answered that question. I sound crazy.
No.
Sorry.
No. I mean, I'm an advocate about the therapy stuff. And then like, honestly, like, whenever I met you a first time, I would have been saying like a therapy is for the weakest man. The people who will go to that would be like, no, I'm not going to that.
Yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, I go to that.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Going into therapy, I mean, and every therapist relationship is different. Like, I'm in talk therapy.
Right.
And for me, that's
Talk
like
therapy?
you're just talking things through.
Yeah.
Like, I just talk to her about what's going on in life, and she gives me some pointers and feedback, and she'll challenge me a little bit, and that's a good fit for me.
Yeah.
But I would tell people, definitely like speed date your therapists.
Yeah, for
Whoever you're
sure.
looking to work with. I remember when I was trying to find the right therapist, someone told me that, like, speed date them.
Yeah.
See how you feel. If they open their mouth and you're annoyed by the way they talk, you're not going to get a good experience, a good, result with them. But that was probably the most helpful thing. Because I remember I talked to some lady on the phone and I couldn't understand what she was saying because she was so quiet and it was so meek. And I'm like this, like I'm really loud, and you got to be able to tell me to shut up for a minute. So there's a whole world of different approaches when it comes to therapy, and you have to find your fit, but definitely taking the time to like be emotionally vulnerable and talk about something that's bothering you.
Yeah.
And how you might fix it.
Yeah.
It could be a bad habit. It could be a stressful job. It could be a relationship. That is hard temporarily, but it is so rewarding in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And it's for your brain.
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing that runs the Earth ship. Why would it be weird to maintain it like it was a car?
Yeah.
For
sure.
So, no, I totally agree. And so you're in therapy now too?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, therapy, finding a good therapist is kind of like dating almost. It's kind of like when you know kind of deal.
When you click, yeah.
Yeah, and then like I walked out in a therapy session multiple times. I just had those people that I go to sit down on the couch. It's not like a movie or anything like that. You just sit on the couch.
Yeah.
And talking to the person, and then she make me do the test, like a disc test, or like 1 through 5 or 6 or whatever.
Yep.
And then every time I open my mouth, and she told me, I don't know, I forgot my number was, because you do this because you're 5 or something. And then she bring me a chart, say, you do this, you think of this, you feel like this because 5. I'm like, okay. And I was talking to this problem, and then she said it again, like, because you do this because you're 5. I'm
She's
like
reading off of a script almost.
Yeah, and then I said, hey,
annoying.
if you say that one more time, I'm a human being.
If you say that one more time, Tina, I'm walking.
Yeah, and then she said it again, that comment. So I walked out.
Fuck around, find out.
That was like $150 or whatever. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then whenever I met my therapist, I'm like, yeah, you're my
person.
Yeah.
You got to have your person.
Yeah.
And even I will say too, when I started going to therapy, it started freeing up my husband's bandwidth, because I'm not just chatting him up about my day at work as much. I'm actually able to, through working with my therapist, learn different ways to handle things. I still talk to my husband about all kinds of things. He'll listen to this and be like, bullshit. You still do. I think it's gotten better though. I think he'd agree that it's gotten better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome. And then you do not have a partner, right?
Nope.
What was that choice?
Right now, well, to this point, I started the company on my own, and I want autonomy over how the business is. And I didn't have a person who was in that similar position as me and wanted to do that at the same time. So I don't know how you and JC started your business or what events. No, I remember the story from a long time ago. I probably need to be refreshed, but it just was the circumstance at the time. It was just me. So it's not to say that if I found an amazing person in the business world that I would like to partner with, that I wouldn't. It's just not what I'm up to right now. So for the foreseeable future, It's just me and sitting at the top of the food pyramid,
Right.
so to speak,
Yeah.
and my support team underneath me, and we work on projects together and then have certain vendors we use to do other certain projects.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is we talked about the last time too, but you are so good at networking, right?
Mm-hmm. Thank
so
you.
yeah, like if what you told me about like advice to the people who maybe who's like suck at networking, maybe they're not good at networking.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people that who's like don't have no contact, or maybe they moved to a new city,
Right.
don't know nobody,
Right.
and then what would you say? What can they do to build the network?
Yeah. So I like to think of your network is literally like, you've seen movies where somebody has to jump out a window and there's a bunch of people holding like a sheet for them to fall on, or like a trampoline for them to fall on. That is literally your network. And you jumping off could be, hey, I need a new job, or I need a letter of recommendation, or I need a plumber, or I need a home builder. It can be anything, but your network are the people who have your back. And we spoke about this a little bit last time, but intrinsically, people want to help. Like, we are just wired to help our fellow man. Most of us. But we are wired to help each other. So when I say to you, Yosuke, I need help with this, or I say if I got fired, your wheels would be turning about who you know is hiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, this is my friend Alyssa. She's in a bad situation. I'm going to help her. Mm-hmm. That's what your network does, but on a scale of how many people you have in there. And it's not even a numbers game. It kind of is, but it's not. I wouldn't even view it that way, but you could view it that way if you're really like treat people like a dollar amount. People are not dollars, obviously. But if you have a bunch of people in your world who think highly of you, and we already know that people want to help other people, what harm can it do by creating a relationship? And that relationship will eventually serve you, and you will be able to help that person. Like that's being a fulfilled person. Like I help people all the time. I had this young lady I interviewed for an internship a long time ago, and she reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I'm looking to get an interview with this agency in town. I know you know the owner. Can you connect me?" I'm like, "Absolutely, sure. Just email me." Because I don't live in my LinkedIn, but like it's stuff like that. If you have a bunch of people who think at least well of you, think okay or well or highly,
right.
Hopefully it's highly of you. When you need them the most, your network will be there for you. Don't treat it like, break the glass. Oh shit, something bad's happening. You need to build relationships and friendships and cultivate, 50-50 give take relationships with people. But if you don't have a network, here's what I'd recommend. And if you're somebody who gets really, really nervous in a networking environment, here's what I recommend. Make it about them. Just go in to the room with a curious mindset, not an agenda. People, even though we want to help one another, we can also smell an agenda. And I know you probably walked into a networking environment and you can tell when somebody wants to come up and sell you car insurance. You can feel when somebody has an agenda. So I wouldn't even go into any sort of networking scenario with, hey, my name is such and such and I sell blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. We care about who we are as people. So in what people love is talking about themselves. That's another universal rule. People want to help each other. People love talking about themselves. So if you can ask really good questions and learn things about people, that's going to make you look different than the last person that they talked about or talked to that just talked about themselves for an hour. So just go into it with an open mindset, ask questions, learn things about people, and let people talk first and listen. For
sure. I mean, that's what I learned from that. I learned that on the hard way.
Yeah.
Because of
what'd you do?
No, I mean, I was always thinking about let's cut it short.
Yeah.
I'll help you, you help me, this is business, you know.
You're a D on the disc spectrum, by the way. You're such a D. We call them D heads in my office. Because you're dominant. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. Get to the point. Give me the executive summary.
Yeah, I think I'm changing a little bit, but you know, like my business partner JC, he used to drive me nuts.
Oh yeah.
Because he just like talks about like nothing about business.
Shut up, JC.
Right? Like he's just like, what are you talking about even? You know what I mean? Like I'm like,
he's talking to talk.
Yeah, we're like in the meeting and like 30 minutes goes by and like we didn't even talk about any business. What are we doing here? And I'm like, all right, let me close this deal. You know what I mean? And then I had so much, but now like I think he saw like my side of things. I think that now finally like we're like closer to that he's showing like a week an hour. But it's okay. But we're kind of like I was used to be didn't care about other stuff rather than business. But he didn't care didn't care, but he didn't talk about stuff. But like we're like kind of coming together in the balance. I feel much better now, and I feel a lot better now. Like we had
you learned how to collaborate and get around each other's communication styles.
It's so funny to me. Like now, I think like almost like 3 weeks ago even, and then we had a conversation and they said, hey, let's actually work together. Conversation, you know, because he had his thing, I had my thing all the time, you know. So now like it's kind of working together. It's just it's very different. And then what you're telling me about make it about them, and then I'm trying to do that now. And then also I think it's not even paying off, but like I'm more chill, and then more relaxed.
Well, you probably take things a lot less personally too.
Yeah.
If you can understand objectively what is happening in a situation, whether that's somebody else's communication style or why a customer is upset, like you don't have to absorb that internally.
Yeah, don't take everything from That was even like the today's book is chapter 2, because like in our agency Frank's office, we have like a morning meeting every morning. Try to. So we have a book called Life is a Joke.
Life is a Joke.
Yeah, he's bringing it.
I want to read this. Life is a Joke. 100 life lessons.
Yeah. So this book has like a maybe 1 or 2 page chapter. It talks about gives you like a little joke.
That's fun.
And then says like this is like a life lesson, the key takeaways and all that kind of stuff. And then we read, and then we sit down around the table like we're like AA meeting, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we talk about, you know, what we think about, what we learned from this lesson. And then we say 3 grateful things about today. And then 1 thing we get done today.
That's
cool. And then that's what we do.
That's like, good culture building.
Yeah, everybody does it. And then sometimes we don't do it. And then like that day would be like kind of like a little bit less positive. I think that I'm trying to create a culture or like
look at you, Mr. D, creating culture. You have to work on that though. But like you have that awareness about yourself and realize, oh, and I'm the same way when I'm in meetings with my team, or was that way. I'm working on that. They are wired in a way where they want to talk about their weekends. They want to talk about, you know, social things that are happening, what's happening in the news, like everything under the sun. And I can do that for a minute. Yeah. But I get to a point where I'm like, okay, now to the agenda. TikTok, let's go.
Right.
But I realize now that if I'm cutting things off too soon, that's actually kind of a culture not builder.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about balance, right? Yeah, I mean, like
awareness. That's why feedback's important.
Yeah.
And as business owners, even as employees, I mean, it's tough to get feedback. It's tough to learn things about yourself that you didn't know or don't want to believe about yourself. But we all have blind spots, and asking for feedback puts you in a very vulnerable mindset. But imagine what you can do with the feedback.
Yeah.
If you can make yourself better, if you can become a better culture builder,
Yeah.
if you can make a happier team, better life for yourself, your boss, your employees, whatever,
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth the minor temporary inconvenience, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, you have to be self-aware. That's like a number one character the good leader have. And then I just totally agree. Like, without feedback, you can't get better.
We can't.
And truth hurts.
Unfortunately. I just want everyone to tell me I'm doing a good job all the time. And they do. Some of them do. Most of them do.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe like how much like that. You know, like for example, stage filming and the switching for us, and then
Thank you, stage.
you know. But sometimes I tell him like, you working too much, you know.
Yeah.
Because he works here and then he goes to security job and then
Dang, stage.
he filmed different kind of stuff, and then I think it's cool. Like I see what I was doing like before. I mean, he's young, but like it's just kind of like I didn't have a days off. Like 1 year, I counted my days off. That was like 7 for a year, and then I was like, I remember those days, and then I see stages kind of doing the same thing, and then like,
Take a vacation, stage. Get out of town. Get out of Dodge.
Something
and also
like
wear your eye cream because your skin does not stay that way forever.
But yeah, I think it's a great to have that mentality of like get to know people and then building a team, and then that's something you can be fulfilled, and then you build a team and then you know them and then they know you. And then like you're saying, like a network. I love that what you said about having the sheet.
It's that trampoline.
The trampoline thing.
If you have to jump out of a burning building, I remember when I got fired, I called, some of my most trusted people in my network.
Yeah.
Other agency people, and told them that I was looking for a job, blah, blah, blah. Some of them I called crying. Some of them are my mentors to this day. And they were there for me. And when I decided that I didn't want to go and pursue another job, I also didn't have anything lined up. We talked about creating alternatives. If you don't have alternatives, then you're SOL whenever you need, something to fall back on. So
SOL.
Shit out of luck.
Oh.
Shit out of luck.
Yeah.
So I didn't have alternatives, and I didn't want to go down that path. But had I wanted to go and look for another job, probably would have behooved me to keep that line open, and maybe even on my LinkedIn profile looking for a job so that job searchers could find me. Like, there are different activities I could have done to make sure that I had other alternatives if this job didn't work out. You don't have to stay loyal. And it's so weird being in the position of a business owner and a boss, because some of the mentality that you had as an employee is now turned against you, or turned not against you, but like, it's the other way. It's the opposite way.
Yeah.
So you think you're doing things well, you think everybody's happy or whatever, and then you learn something that you said or did had an impact on someone, and you're like, oh no, I'm becoming something I don't want to be.
Yeah.
You just you learn things, and I at the end of the day, I think as long as you're learning from it and not repeating the same mistakes, you're already going to be 25 steps ahead of other people.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I mean, I do have a question about that. Like sometimes, building a team, and then, you don't want to be a certain people and that kind of stuff. And then sometimes, I do feel like I don't want to be too hard, to the people. Yeah. But, I just feel like sometimes I need to.
Yeah.
Because
you're a D.
I guess. I'm going to walk out.
If you see that one more time, Alyssa.
But yeah, I think that I have struggled, but like what I've found out, and it's been a lot easier for me, that process, is that I stay true to my value.
Yeah.
And then that's just kind of things that if that's sometimes, like sometimes maybe I'm right or maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't really matter. And sometimes that person I go into Hirsch or whatever to is, they might be right, they might be wrong. Right. But it's not really argument, or it doesn't matter. But if I stay to the value, then if I move on, then like I'm creating a team stuff, and then they have as much as control to leave. And then also like sometimes it's just not compatible. So
that's true.
So that's the kind of things that was kind of like a big things I learned so far building a team, especially I am the choosing the team members.
Yeah.
I am the training those people, so that, I have that hard time. But, end of the day, everything happens because of what I did. So
isn't that's some shit though, right?
Yeah.
When you are at the end of your day and you're like, well, that was some drama, but
Yeah.
was I the drama to begin with?
Yeah.
Like, is it something that I didn't give people information? And it sounds like, I think that you and I are kind of those people that are very hard on ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds like from the way that this podcast might read, people are like, holy shit, these people are dysfunctional business owners. But no, this is like the stuff that we think of in our heads. Like how, even if it was like the most minor inconvenience to somebody, like, oh my gosh, how did I let that happen? I let that happen. How did I do that? Da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And what I haven't been doing as a professional and a business owner is taking that stuff seriously the first time before it gets out of hand and creates other problems.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think, as a business, we've made a lot of really, really good changes because we started taking feedback seriously, started taking things that we told ourselves after projects as a team, like, okay, well, that sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not do that again. My project manager and I have been starting to do this, like, okay, thank you again, Sandler, for this framework. This week, what went well? What could have been better? What do we not want to repeat? If we just keep it as simple as that, what went well? What could have been better? What needs to completely change?
Right.
We did that for the first time last week, and we talked about journaling last time together. And that's a really important thing to do, is just debrief internally. Like, don't just wallow in the what ifs, actually like write it down. When you're feeling like you're overwhelmed with all the things, this happens to me a lot. And I'm a person with ADHD, and I have to manage that.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling like I've got too much going around my head and I can't make heads or tails over what is bothering me, but I know I'm bothered, I have to write it down.
Yeah.
And I have to put it into a list, or I have to put it onto Post-it notes and put it on a whiteboard, like
Yeah,
whatever
for
it
sure.
is you can get out of your head and prioritize. That'll also help you with figuring out what you need to change.
Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful that, like we're having this conversation, and
Me
honestly,
too.
that's kind of what I want to do with this podcast, as Be Frank podcast, is like as frank as possible, because it's a lot of like a media, a lot of like, it's almost like a entrepreneur, like a business owner is almost like treat it as like a celebrity almost.
Yeah.
Like in this day, today's society.
That's true. Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's a cool thing to do. It's like that stuff, and then a lot of
Ooh, she's a business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And then I think that you are being the business owner, and I'm being a business owner. I think it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what we do. Why we do it. That's not the only reason why we do it. But what I wanted to showcase to people who are listening to is that, there is a dark side and there is a tough side, but there is a lot of good side. It's a 50-50. Maybe sometimes it's not 80-20. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I just want to showcase as much as possible, and if we can show them what's real and then inspire them to maybe start a business, maybe not. you know?
I mean, I was the most energized I had ever been in my marketing career when I had just started my company. I remember waking up at 3:00 in the morning. I had just gotten my logo done the night before and gotten everything done, and I just wanted to work on my website. I just wanted to like create this thing. It was mine. I was so proud to have something that was mine for the first time. I had control over. Nobody's going to come up above me and tell me I'm doing a bad job.
Yeah.
I was free of that. But then that's also the challenge, is that nobody is above me telling me what I need to do. So do also, that's another thing that I do as a business owner, is I do invest in people who are smarter than me.
Yeah.
Business coach, financial person, like get you a CFO, get you a good accountant, bookkeeper, like outsource the things that you do not need to be putting time and energy into that take you out of that zone of excellence. If you can afford it, you have to do everything at first when you start out, but as you start growing, get that stuff off your plate.
Yeah.
Turn it into a process, turn it into something. I'm working very hard on that right now, like turning things into a process of accountability rather than me having to do every single little thing.
Yeah. So I asked you that last time too, but is that a kind of advice you give yourself 5 years ago?
Yeah. Well, I think I did bring on some of the right help early on, but I probably should have brought on a CFO a consultant or a money person way early on to help me figure out my profitability. Profitability has been the biggest struggle because I didn't raise my rates for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I really, really, really wish I would have brought on somebody with financial sense, not even just an accountant. Some accountants are like this. You need to interview your accountant too, and bookkeeper. Anybody who's going to be working on your team, speed date them.
Yeah.
If they can give you guidance on, hey, I noticed that your profitability this month, they help you read your P&L, like your margins aren't good. Like find somebody who's smarter than you. If you can't do this yourself, help you figure out how profitable you are and what you need to change in your business to make it profitable. For me, the biggest challenge as a business has been pricing. We talked about that in our first take together. Like pricing is such a tricky thing, especially when you're not selling, widgets. You're not selling like tangible things. So researching, trying new pricing models, getting client feedback has been really a big part of that. But we're at a point in the agency where we do have to raise our rates a little bit. I don't want to penalize people who have been with us and helped us get to this point. Mm-hmm. So of course they're always going to, be given preference. But for new people, absolutely, we have to charge differently for things, and we have to be more protective with our time.
For sure. I know you're going to drink with JC or whatever later, but I think that
it's probably something we'll drink about.
Yeah,
pricing.
I mean, like honestly, like he's the one like figured out that part about it, and then like I was kind of against it, but now I'm all for it.
You see, and it's so crazy, especially in this intangible world where we aren't selling an end product necessarily. We do, but it's not a tangible thing. So your hours, your time, and JC actually helped me realize that early on. So get you a JC.
So what do you think about? What do you see yourself in 5 years?
I had a hard time answering this last time too. I could see the agency being I hope it's a very well-oiled machine. I hope that we are, very well established. We are in our lane of excellence. People know us for one or two very solid things. I hope that's still social media, content creation. I still want to be working with small businesses. Maybe we'll get into mid-size, companies of a certain scale. I just love working for family-owned companies. That's a really big part of, my passion, my background, my family experience.
Yeah.
So for me as the business owner, I'd love to be able to take more vacation.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a solid salary.
Yeah.
I would like to be at a point where I'm not investing back in my business all the time. I want to be properly priced. I want to be, just ironclad processes, very clear understanding of what we all do, what we don't do. We charge a premium for that thing that we do, and we're not worried about the margins, the profitability, money stress is just far less. Yeah. So I'd love to be at that point someday.
I think if I could, honestly, that I was always thought about like salary stuff issue, also vacation stuff. It was a big thing I changed this year actually. You feel like you're I felt like I have to be here all the time. And I feel like if I'm not here, nothing gets done.
Gonna happen.
And all that kind of stuff, and I can't take a break, and I can't go to vacation like a week off. But I finally took a week off vacation.
Good. Where'd you go?
Hawaii.
Perfect.
Yeah, I went to Maui, but I probably answered like maybe like 3 phone calls.
Good.
During that time, but I had a great time, and then I realized it wasn't too bad for like a business, and I let everybody know. And after that, I went to a 5 days backpacking trip.
Perfect.
That was like no cell phone service, obviously. And then, so it's just kind of like, but I think that's like made me realize it's not about like sometimes whenever you're a business owner, sometimes you have to stop working on your business. Yeah. And then work in the business.
In the business,
you have to work on the business. And as soon as you have a structure, you have to trust employees, and then that's how you have to scale. And then that's how then sometimes you just might surprise yourself if you take maybe 3 days off, 4 days off. Then tell your team, say, hey, I'm taking off.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay. what they're gonna say? No.
Right.
Because the people who are telling no is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's so good, and it's so true.
maybe
That's so true. I did that. This was the first year I felt like as a team I had the structure in place to be able to do that. And yeah, game changer.
yeah.
Game changer. Loved it.
So maybe hopefully next podcast I would love to hear about your vacation story.
Yes. While we're getting people onboarded, I'm probably not going to be taking a vacation for like another couple months, but
Yeah.
we've had a good year in some respects and a lot of growth and a lot of challenges, but we're getting through it.
Yeah.
4 years. 4 years this November. So, whoop whoop.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
And then where can people find you?
Yeah, so for my company, Siren Media, we are on Instagram at Siren Media OKC. We are about to launch our new brand and tell stories about awards that we've been winning for our clients and work we've been doing. So that'll be something cool you can check out. If you want to see me be a weirdo and do different makeup looks, like this Halloween was so much fun. I got to do all kinds of things. So personal Instagram where you can see makeup, looks, my cats, whatever. It's at @amurphmaid, MURPHMAID.
Well, we're gonna put everything on the link in the description.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in, Alyssa. And then we are Be Frank Podcast. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, like, and comment. And then do for Stage's hard work. Hit the like button, punch the like button, maybe subscribe.
Stage, take a vacation.
All right, this was episode 5. See you guys next time. Yeah.